Welcome back to Blatantly Honest. Today I'm going to chat with Randy Haveson. He's a former drug addict and alcoholic, but now he's been sober for over 36 years. Randy's an author, speaker, life coach, father, and husband. He's living proof that you can overcome any obstacle if you believe in yourself and ask for help along the way. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today, Randy. It's always fun chatting with you because you're just used to this kind of stuff. So
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
so I guess let's start at the very beginning because I think that would make the most sense.
hmm
What is that starting point for you when you were kind of like, all right, this is really pivotal and my life kind of got out of control?
Hmm. Good question. And we have an hour and a half, right? No, just kidding.
Like, ah,
No, I'll
we'll
give
lose
you the
them, we'll
short
lose them.
version. So, it started with me growing up in an upwardly mobile, typical American family. Dad started with nothing, started working in the real estate business in Los Angeles in the 60s, started doing very, very well, becoming very successful. The houses got bigger and bigger, the cars got bigger, the vacations became more extensive. We started going to private schools. So on the outside, I had everything a person could possibly want and thought that I had it made. 90210 zip code. I mean, we had the whole thing. And at about 15, 16, I started experimenting with alcohol and drugs, like a lot of teenagers do. And I really liked the feeling and started to do it more and was hiding it from my parents and getting involved with a different crowd of people. And for me, it started to get out of control. Where, again, on the outside had everything, but on the inside felt horrible about myself. I was such a loser, started to do worse in school, went out for teams, didn't do very well. And then it was time to go to college, and my college career was just a mess. I mean, it was just trials of what is it called? Academic probation.
Oh no.
I ended up getting kicked out of college twice. And the second time I got kicked out of college was right around the same time I got fired from my job delivering pizza. And life was falling apart. And it's called hitting a bottom. And my bottom was sitting in my bedroom one night with a knife in my hand, debating which wrist I was going to slice open first because I was done. I didn't want to live that way anymore. I didn't see any way out. And I thought, I'm just done. So I had the whole plan, and something came into my head that said, what are you doing? You need help. And it was the first time that I actually gained the courage to reach out for help. And I actually called a hotline. And the woman who answered the phone that night, I truly believe she saved my life. So I'm a big fan of hotlines and help people who put themselves out to assist others and volunteers. It's someone like that who saved my life. And after that, I started to turn my life around. I quit using, I stopped drinking, I realized what my priorities really were. I got back into college, ended up getting a bachelor's degree, and went on for a master's degree. And this whole time on the inside, I was still feeling horrible, but I started to feel better I had 30 days sober and 60 days sober and 6 months sober and a year sober. I was back in school. I got an A in a class and things started to turn around. And I remember one day I'm watching TV and an ad came on that said, do you want to feel better about who you are? Do you want to improve your self-esteem? Grow more hair and your self-esteem will be better. And I thought, what? Wait, my self-esteem is dependent on how many follicles I have on my head?
Oh my God.
That just sounded ridiculous. And I started to realize that our society sells us this vision of what success means and how to value who people are. That if you're raised in this zip code, if you have a certain number on a scale, if you have a certain amount of follicles, if you drive a certain car, wear a certain label, that gives you more status and value. But I realized that's so not true, that what you have on the outside has nothing to do with who you are on the inside. So I started to realize that more and more. And I was also a member of the 12-step programs and realized that there was a difference between people who relapsed and people who made it in recovery. And a lot of it was ego versus self-esteem. How did they really feel about themselves as opposed to this image that they wanted to portray? And it was all based on wanting people to like them and putting on this show for everybody else. And I started to put this presentation together and my book together, and it's evolved over the past 25 years, where today I teach people how to let go of ego, build their self-esteem, and find what happiness really is all about. So that's what I get to do today, and I'm so grateful for every day. I should have been dead 100 times, but for me to be here today, and especially like on your show, you're like so awesome. And to be doing this from such a young age and where you are and all that, I just have huge respect for you. And it's an honor to be here today and to share this, because you know that difference between ego and self-esteem. And that's the thing I really want to talk about and get people to grasp, is that you're not what other people think of you. And I want people to start realizing, to not treat yourself like your own worst enemy, start treating yourself like your own best friend.
Yeah, people need to. And I think it breaks my heart that you had to go through everything that you went through, because I get it. And I mean, not as much like the addiction aspect, but just the feeling so low and feeling like you have to be something other than you're not, and then suppressing that. And obviously, you turn to drugs, you turn to alcohol, you turn to, self-harm, all those kind of things go hand in hand. And it's
Oh,
like, for
yeah.
what? Uh,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know what? It's because I know bullying is one of your big platforms.
mhm.
And I believe that when you look at addiction and eating disorders and self-harm and bullying, those are symptoms of a core issue, which is a lack of self-esteem in our society. Bullies have ego, they don't have self-esteem. They need to make themselves feel better than other people by putting them down. People high in self-esteem, they don't want to get high. It's like, why would I want to do that to myself? So, and self-harm, it's like, I'm not going to hurt myself. So it's a product of ego over self-esteem. And I truly believe that if our society can grasp this and start raising their self-esteem, all those other issues start to dissipate.
Definitely. So, how do you think that as a society, because our society is just something right now, how do you think? Yeah, I don't even know how to describe it. It's
Yeah.
just, yeah, like you turn on the news every day and you're just like, what? Like, this just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. Why do you think our country, our nation, our world is in the situation that it's in?
Because over time, ego has been taking over. Madison Avenue spends billions of dollars every year knowing that if you buy this product, lose weight now, lose 10 pounds in 10 days, buy this product and feel better about yourself. Everything is based on ego. And when you look at the conflicts in other countries, it's because there's a lack of respect and not allowing each country or each people to believe what they do and the way that they do, and allowing them to just be different. Different doesn't mean bad. Different is just different. So we've kind of over the centuries built this ego thing up. And that's why now it's time to turn it around. And we're starting to see all these issues starting to really take hold, like social justice issues, gun control issues, wearing a mask versus not wearing a mask, which is a total ego versus self-esteem thing too. So all of this is starting to come to a head. So now is the time to start shifting things to be more self-esteem focused rather than ego focused.
I love the thought of that, but like realistically, it makes me wonder, do you think people are actually going to change, or do you think it's all like, oh, let's like get excited and hyped about something for a minute and then just forget it?
Yeah, well, self-esteem isn't a quick fix. Self-esteem takes time. And what I'm hoping for is something that I heard about a long time ago called the 100th monkey phenomenon. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Oh, I love the 100th monkey phenomenon.
I'm
Okay,
a monkey.
yeah, here's how it works. A long time ago, there were some people in Bali that were watching monkeys eat sweet potatoes, but they were noticing that the monkeys were getting sick because they weren't washing the sweet potatoes first. So they attempted to teach the monkeys how to wash the sweet potato in the river before they ate it. And the old monkeys wanted nothing to do with it. But the younger monkeys started watching the people go down to the river and wash the sweet potato. So one of the monkeys one day went down and washed the sweet potato and ate it. And the other monkeys watched and they're like, whoa, that's cool. So every time the monkey would wash his sweet potato and then eat it. And the next day, another monkey went and washed their sweet potato and ate it. And all of a sudden, the other monkeys in Bali were like, wow, I want to do that too. And they started washing their sweet potatoes. And then it was when the 100th monkey washed their sweet potato, all of a sudden, over in Indonesia, monkeys started washing sweet potatoes before they ate them. So when enough people shift their consciousness, it becomes an energy that goes worldwide. So when you look at some of the issues and some of the things that have taken place, like slavery, that was something that we worked really hard on. And then all of a sudden there was this turning point and the Civil War happened and it abolished slavery and it started to abolish all over the world. And I truly believe that we need to start one person at a time raising their self-esteem to get to the point where other people, okay, when people watch my workshop or read my book, I hear this all the time. People will say, there's something different about you. Did you cut your hair? Did you get a tan? Something about you just seems different. And what's different is they're starting to raise their self-esteem, feel better about who they are, and it's like the energy shifts. And then their friends are like, well, I want to do what you're doing. So my workshop that I put together gives people all the tools they need in order to raise their self-esteem. What took me 25 years to do, I put it in the workshop for people to just have all the tools right there. And if they put those into place, they're going to feel better. The people around them are going to want to do it too. And hopefully we'll get the 100th monkey thing going on and enough people will start raising their self-esteem where this becomes the new normal. So that's my hope and that's what I want to do. So that's why right now during the COVID times, I lowered the price of my workshop to $10, $9.95. So it's the cost of a latte and a scone at Starbucks. So I want to make it really, really easy for people. And my goal is I would rather help 1 million people than make $1 million. I mean, sure, it would be nice to do both, but I'd rather help 1 million people and really start making that shift. Because we so need it in our society, especially now. There's so much depression, there's so much anxiety, there's so much self-doubt. People are feeling so constricted and the uncertainty of not knowing when this is going to end and what's going on and what's the right thing to do and how it's so frustrating for people that having self-esteem gives people the tools they need to have some grounding with themselves. It's kind of like when you see the pictures of the tornado that rips through the town and there's that one house that's standing in the middle of the whole thing. You're like, how is that house standing? And my analogy for that, it's like when you raise your self-esteem, all this stuff and chaos can happen around you, but you're solid with who you are and what's going on. So that's my goal here, is to help people realize that, no matter where I am on that continuum, I can always feel better about who I am and raise my self-esteem.
So when you were going through everything that you experienced and your own lack of self-esteem, so to speak, when did you start identifying that that was the cause of your problems?
Oh, that's a really good question. Ooh, you're good at this. It was probably when I got into my master's program. It was around then because I got in, even though my grades were horrible, it was my essay and my interview at the grad school that got me in. And I realized that it's not so much about the numbers in my GPA. It was about what I had to offer and what I brought to the school. And they were looking more at me on who I was rather than that outside stuff. And I was like, maybe there's something to this. And then the more I stayed in sobriety, I realized that there was a difference between just being sober and being in recovery. And the more I was in recovery and doing those things and being of service and living a life of gratitude and humility rather than what's in it for me, life just kept getting better. And I started to put it all together and there it was. And then I started doing presentations and here was this self-esteem workshop that just kind of poured out of me one day.
That's incredible. So you're sober and in recovery, or, I don't know the proper terminology, so forgive me. But how was that whole experience? Was that like very difficult in the beginning and it got easier? I mean,
It was the hardest thing I ever did. It was so, I don't even know how to put it into words. And there's no way to really describe it unless you've gone through it. That first year of my sobriety was the most painful year of my life. I mean, it was every day, don't drink, don't use, don't kill yourself. I mean, it was really intense. And what I like about The 12-step programs is they taught me just do it one day at a time. Don't worry about staying sober for 90 days or a year. Just today, can you go from breakfast to lunch and stay sober? Can you go from lunch to dinner? And sometimes even that was too much. I remember calling one of my mentors one time and said, I'm going to go get high. You told me to call you if I was going to get high. I'm going to go get high now. He said, well, what are you doing right now? I said, I'm watching TV. Okay, can you watch TV for 10 minutes and call me back? I'm like, dude, whatever, sure. And then I called him back in 10 minutes. I'm still going to go get high. He said, all right, wait, 10 more minutes. Just watch for 10 more minutes. And then all of a sudden, a half an hour passed. I was like, oh, okay, the craving's gone. So giving up the friends and changing that lifestyle and changing my mindset that drugs and alcohol were not the solution, they were actually the problem. It was really, really hard to do that, but I did, and I never relapsed. When from that moment, May 27th, 1984, when I made that decision to give it up, May 28th is my sobriety date, and it has been through the duration of my recovery. So 36 years now, over 36 years sober.
Yeah,
And
that's
if I can do it, anybody can do it. There's no magic anything. Someone took me aside, hey, I want to share something with you that I'm not telling anybody else. No, it's for anybody. So people who are struggling with substances out there, it is not a solution. It will just get worse and worse as time goes on. It's not worth it.
no, and I've had family members and friends who have gone through that, and it's heartbreaking to watch because people have to admit that there's something wrong.
Hmm.
And so, how was that experience for you coming to terms with, hey, I need to do something?
Well, there's a prime example of ego over self-esteem. The ego is, I can take care of this. I can do this on my own. The self-esteem is getting the humility to say, I need help. And it's one of the hardest things to do for an egomaniac, but it's also the best thing that you can do for yourself. There's no way I could have done this on my own. I needed the support of people in the 12-step programs, my therapist when I got sober. Thank God I found this guy. He really knew addiction and he helped me learn how to be a human being again. So it was through a lot of mentors and teachers and people who came right at the right time to support me and help me out. But the people are out there, and it's just being open-minded to getting the help.
Definitely. I think, going back to the whole ego-centric and driven, I think people have such a hard time saying, oh, I have a problem. This is me. I need this. I need this. And it puts them in this hole that's hard to get out of.
Oh,
So, with that being said, what do you think the problem is with all these young people? Because, it's like, oh, drugs are cool, drinking's cool. Like, everyone goes through a stage, so to speak, so they say.
mhm.
Why do you think there's such a stigma associated with the coolness of substances?
Here's one of the issues that I have is that we demonize alcohol and drugs. It's bad, don't do it. And you tell a teenager, if you have a whole house with open doors, but one door that's closed and say, don't go in that room, do not open that door, what's the teenager going to want to do?
Hmm.
Open the door. So the problem is we've told these kids, don't do it, drugs are bad and all that. But the problem is then they do, and it's like, what are they talking about? This is bad. Oh my God, this is one of the best feelings I've ever had. So when I do my substance abuse education programs for high school students and for college students, I talk about when I started doing drugs, it was awesome. Oh my God, I was taller, I was thinner, I was funnier. All of a sudden, the girls liked me. I was better at sports. My grades, everything was better. All these people telling me to just say no. Why would I do that? Finally, I feel like I fit in. So what I talk about is that's the trap, is that at the beginning, it's awesome. And actually, I get a lot of high schools that don't want me to come in because I talk about it in this way. But I want to be honest with these kids. I want to tell them like it is, that at the beginning, it's going to feel like the best thing in the world. But it's almost like, I love ice cream, but if I'm lactose intolerant, there are going to be some negative side effects, you know?
Yep, yep.
So, and it catches you if there's a family history, if you notice you have a tolerance, pretty much from the beginning, there are these signs and symptoms along the way, but no one ever taught me what those signs and symptoms were. So I just kept going. I thought everybody blacked out after they drank 12 shots of tequila. I didn't know that there was a name for that. So what I like to do is educate people that at the beginning, the problem is you're really going to like it. But you have to be careful because it'll turn on you real quick.
Mhm.
And if you get in the pool, you have a risk of drowning. The more often you get in there and the more risks you take, the more chance you have of drowning. The only way to make sure you don't drown, don't get in the pool. So I have a lot of respect for teenagers and college students who go through their college career and they don't drink and they don't do drugs. And that's awesome. And they're still having a really good time. 25% of college students don't drink or use at all. So that's
Wow.
1 out of 4. But the message out there is everybody does it. It's not true. It's not true. It's only 40% of high school seniors drink and use drugs. But those are the ones that are glamorized, so it seems like that's what happens for everybody, but it's not true. The majority don't.
I know. I wish kids would know those numbers because, I was the kid that never went to the parties, never did anything in high school. In college, I was in a sorority and, went to some different events and whatnot. So, whole thing, story for another time. But, these kids feel like it's not cool to be the one kid in the corner that's not doing anything. So, I guess to that kid, what would you say?
Don't go to that party. Go somewhere else where people are hanging out and not drinking and using.
Mhm.
One of the things I talk about when I do my presentation is, you never hear on the news dorm room full of college students eats pizza and watches movies until 3 a.m. Everyone goes home safely. News at 11. We don't hear that. We hear about the person who died or went to jail or fell off the balcony because they were too drunk but we don't hear about the majority of kids. If you're feeling uncomfortable in the situation you're in, go to a different situation. When I got sober, I wasn't going to those parties anymore. I wasn't hanging out with those people anymore. I would go to a meeting and then afterwards people were like, "Hey, you want to go to the restaurant and have coffee and pie?" I was like, "Yeah, let's go." And we'd be there until 1 in the morning having a really good time with each other. So it was about changing who you're hanging, your playmates, your playthings, and your playmates. That's the way to change it. And if you're uncomfortable in one situation, find another. Because I guarantee there's someone else in that room who's feeling just as uncomfortable. Find that person and go to a movie or go binge watch The Malorian or whatever. There are so many things to do in college towns, and student activities spends thousands of dollars every year coming up with alternative activities, bowling nights and comedy nights and improv and karaoke and so many cool things. Look outside of that one narrow lens to the different possibilities that are out there.
Yeah, college is an interesting time. And I feel like, back to the whole thing of, oh, don't open this door, don't do this, don't do that. Kids need someone to be honest. And people get really offended by the fact that, like, this is actually how it is versus what everyone's going to tell you because I think people are afraid of honesty.
Yeah.
In your opinion, why do you think that is?
People want to hear what they want to hear, and they want to hear what reinforces their ideas. And a lot of high school kids, they might not drink or use, or they just kind of do it a little bit. And then they hear when you get to college, that's when the partying starts. So they just feel like that's the norm. So that's what they get into. But there are plenty of people who don't. So it's about what is your mindset and what it is you're looking. You will find whatever you're looking for. If you want to find people who are shooting heroin, you're going to find people who shoot heroin. If you want to find people who are eating acid and playing hacky sack 24 hours a day, that's what you're going to find. If you want to find people who are drinking to excess and hooking up, that's what you're going to find. So it's whatever you're looking for, that's going to be your reality.
So when you're in that reality and you kind of come to terms with your current situation, what is the best first step to get away from that?
I'm a big believer in go talk to somebody. If you have a peer education program on your campus, go talk to a peer educator, the health education department, the counseling center. Most of those services are free for college students. So you just go in, it's totally confidential. The counselor's not going to go back to your fraternity and say, "Hey, Jim was in here today talking about," yeah. It's not going to happen. So to go in and, I had so many kids. I worked in 4 college counseling centers, and I do a presentation, and someone would come in and say, okay, I get it. What you said makes perfect sense, but I don't know where I'm going to find other friends. And I say,
Mhm.
you know what? Thursday at 2 o'clock, what are you doing? Nothing. Come to our peer education meeting. You're going to see 42 other people who don't drink, maybe every now and then. They don't do drugs. They're having fun. They're doing cool things with each other. Show up. And when they did, they would have a new group of people that they could hang out with. So go and talk to someone to find out where the alternatives are.
They're there. I think people just have such a difficult time, being
Yeah.
like, let me go outside my comfort zone in order to find that. So great point.
You know what? But you have found, everyone who is successful has found, if you want to truly find success in life, you have to go outside your comfort zone. If
Mhm.
you stay in your comfort zone your whole life, that would just, I can't even imagine that. That would
No.
just be, no. And what we have found, the bigger risks you take, the bigger the rewards are. Writing a book for me, oh my God, I am so severely ADD that for me to sit down and actually write a book is pretty much impossible. So I had to go find a ghostwriter that could help me get the ideas down, and then I could edit it from there. That was a huge risk for me to do. And, putting out a book, well, you know this, it's scary. I
Yeah.
mean, you put it out because it's like I just put my heart out there to the world. What if people are like, oh my God, this sucks. I hate this. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So it's a risk. Anything worthwhile in life is going to take you out of your comfort zone to do it. So that's why to encourage young people to do something that is risk taking, and that, it's not skydiving. It's going somewhere different, joining the chess club, joining a student organization where you have an interest but you don't know anybody there. Go do it. Take that risk, learn what it's like to step out of that comfort zone. That's where you're really going to find your rewards in life.
Well said. I think, overcoming all the adversities that you've been through and now being able to kind of give back to kids, I think is just, that's what it's about. So
Yeah.
I applaud everything you're doing.
Thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
and I just love working, and I just started doing coaching again, so I'm working with people one-on-one, which is so much fun. I just got done working with this high school athlete who was losing confidence, and we started talking about finding that warrior within. And now he's like, his dad called me. He's like, "Oh my God, what did you do to my son?" It's like, yes. So I love working with young people. So if I can be of service, I'm happy to do that.
It's incredible. Yes, well, we'll make sure all of our listeners are able to access, whether it's your ego class, so to speak, or just coaching, because I think people need that, and especially during times like this, like with COVID and everyone's sitting at home and like, oh, that's a whole other animal. But people need
Yeah.
someone to talk to.
They do. Yeah. We're not, but we're social creatures, even people who are introverted. And, there's nothing wrong with being shy or being introverted, but even shy and introverted people need some kind of connection.
Mhm.
So to go out and get that is really, really important.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much. You are just fantastic, and I love like listening to you speak because I'm like, oh my God, I could just ask him a million questions. Um, I just really applaud you because I know how difficult it is to get sober just from watching people that I love struggle with that. So I tremendously respect it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, I'm here, so would love to come back if you ever have an opening. Love to help
Yes,
folks. Yeah.
definitely, definitely. There's a lot of them that need it, so I'm sure
Well,
they'll be grateful.
awesome. That's great. Be bold. Be you. Be you. That's the best person you can be. And be blatantly honest.